over the last few sessions, the subject which we've been discussing is the sorts of things which can increase the amount of good karma in one's life. And according to the teachings of the Lord Buddha, in the teaching which we call the heart of the Buddha's teaching, given to us on Magha Puja Day all those years ago, that we should do only good, avoid evil, and purify the mind, then accumulating good deeds is the first of the three things which is the main duty of Buddhists in their self-improvement. The second part is to refrain from all forms of unwholesome deeds, as with the word sappapapassa akaranam in the heart of the Buddha's teaching. And this brings us to the whole of the subject of the precepts, and also of basically how to avoid accumulating any form of bad karma in our lives. Of course, in the world there are many systems of morality, and morality in general, if it conjures up an image in our head, it's usually one of rules and regulations which prohibit us from doing the things perhaps which we enjoy, often without any reasons. And if you look at the way which Buddhism regards discipline, then it does seem to be a little bit different from this idea of morality and rules and being stopped by other people from doing the things which we enjoy. And in fact, it is because there are two forms of morality in the world. There's artificial morality, and then there's natural morality. Artificial morality normally is someone sitting down and making up a whole lot of rules for other people to follow. And for example, if you look at criminal law, then mostly this is what we call artificial morality. If it was natural morality, then every country would have the same laws. But in fact, from country to country, laws are very different. Even within some states in America, the laws are not the same. A person who is dead in one state may be alive in the next state, according to the rules of the law. So be careful which state in America you die in, otherwise they will take away your life support system. So it's up to men to make up the rules for artificial morality. And if you talk about how efficient it is in inspiring people to want to avoid doing bad things, then sometimes it's questionable. As we see with the law, sometimes it's a very strange approach to how to get people to behave in a way which is wholesome in society. People get put in prison. It doesn't repair the damage which they have done to break the law in the first place. But it gives the people who are the victims of the crime the satisfaction of seeing the person who has offended them to be put behind bars and to lose their sense of freedom. So apparently this satisfaction makes up for the law which has been broken. But by common sense we can see it doesn't repair the damage. In fact, it may even add to the damage, because as soon as you put petty criminals in prison together, then they all get years and years to chat together and to learn from one another. And by the time they come out of prison, then they are not petty criminals anymore, but they are professional criminals, because they have all the experience of all the other inmates put together. So it's a very strange system. And what is even stranger is that while they are in the prison, then the taxpayer is the one who has to support them. So they're actually kept in prison with the nice menu and the well-designed recreation areas and so on, at the expense of the people who are the victims of the crime in the first place. So it's a very funny system. So this is what we call artificial morality. And basically it is an arbitrary system by which people sit down to write laws and decide what is right or wrong. The way we look at morality in Buddhism is a little bit different. We would refer to it as natural morality. In fact, we believe that with every action comes a reaction. And we know already from the last lesson that if we do good things, then good things come back to us. By the same token, if we do bad things, then bad things will come back to us. So that you can say that even without anyone making up laws, then there's always a retribution coming from every bad action which we do. We don't need a police force to enforce a punishment upon a person for doing something bad. But that's not to say that we don't need a police force. But the system of morality in Buddhism says that whether a person likes it or not, sooner or later, every unwholesome thing which they do will have a reaction which comes back to them. Just as sure as if you throw a stone up in the air, then it will fall back to earth. But we don't know how quickly the retribution will come. And this is why we still do need to have some artificial system of morality in the countries we live in. We don't just let everything happen according to the laws of karma. But at the same time, the ways in which we might see an appropriate way to give a punishment for those criminals who are able to learn their mistakes and to mend their consciences, then the sort of punishment which might be more appropriate would be a punishment where they can learn to repair the damage they have done, and they can change as a person so that they would not want to do such a crime again. So the sort of punishments which Buddhism normally would favor maybe would be things like community work, or to be shamed for a deed which one has done. Not to make one afraid of the police, but to make one afraid of that action which one has done. And the same thing applies for even if you are a parent and you're teaching your children. The idea of punishing a child would be to teach the child to be afraid of that deed, not to be afraid of you. When we talk about good and bad in Buddhism, again, there's this taboo in the Western society about judging anything. They think that everything is just a point of view. So they say what is good for one person may be bad for another. But Buddhism, we do believe that there are absolutes about good or bad. This is hard to explain to people who don't see beyond this lifetime, but to put it in a more simple way, we believe that unwholesome things or bad things are things which sooner or later will bring suffering back to us. So the reason why we want to avoid those things is because otherwise we are bringing suffering upon ourselves. Some people have compared it to the behavior of putting on a pair of shoes which are 2 sizes too small for you. If you put on such shoes, you might say it's good or it's bad. It's up to you to decide whether putting on shoes which are too small is good or bad. But what is for sure is that as soon as you start walking down the road, then your feet will start to hurt. And therefore such a behavior is stupid to do. It's stupid to wear shoes which are the wrong size. And in Buddhism, we see things in the same way. that if we do certain behaviors, then it's stupid for us to do them, because inevitably those behaviors are going to bring us some sort of suffering in the future. So it's not that we are making some judgment, but we are talking about what will happen as a result of such behavior. And if we want to avoid the results of that behavior, then we try to avoid the behavior in the first place. So this is a system of natural morality which we have. We don't need someone to judge something to be right or wrong, but it's the nature of the deed itself which makes it stupid to do. And this is why we avoid it. So we don't shrink away from judging an action, but we see the action according to its nature, and the nature brings the problem to us in the future, then it's worth avoiding. In just the same way that merit in the mind will bring better quality of mind and will help to enhance the quality of our life on the 4 different levels. That is the level of the mind, the level of our personality, the level of our lifestyle, and the level of society. In the same way, if we do things which are unwholesome, it lays down a sort of unwholesome energy in the mind. And that unwholesome energy changes the quality of the mind. So the quality of the mind will become worse. Also, the quality of our lifestyle eventually will become worse. Our personality will become worse, and eventually the quality of society will become worse as well. It's like the nature of the mind will be changed by those sort of unwholesome deeds. The mind itself, if you were able to see it, would become darkened. It would become clouded. You will not be able to think things through clearly anymore. You will become more clumsy in your behaviors, less thorough in your behaviors. Your lifestyle will have more obstacles coming up in it. When you wish something to achieve success, then there will be more things which will come in the way of that success. And in the long term, even society as a whole will suffer as a result of your personal actions. In the beginning, it may be that just your family see the changes. For example, if there's one person in a family who insists on gambling every day, then eventually, even though the gambler is only one person in the family, but the whole family starts to suffer as a result of that person's behavior. So it's not just that person who suffers from the unwholesome behavior, but it starts to affect the people around them as well. And this may extend further outwards to the neighborhood and even society at large. But as with the merit, the first level of action is always on the mind. Immediately an action is done, then the mind is affected. But it may take longer for the effects to filter out into our personality, into our lifestyle, and eventually into society at large. So just as merit has effects on all those levels, demerit has effect on all these levels too, but it's the opposite effect.